Welcome everyone to today's webinar, Getting Started with Oracle Process Automation Decision Models. My name is Nikki Chen and I'm a Marketing Event Manager for the Developer Initiative here at Oracle. And today we'll dive into the power of decision models and how they can enhance workflows. Just a quick note, we'll be sending the session recording to the same email address used for today's event. If you have any questions during the webinar, please drop them in the Zoom chat or in the Q&A area, and we'll be ready to answer them. We've also set up a Slack channel, Cloud Coaching North America, in our developer workspace that you can access at the QR code or at the link on the screen. This channel will remain open after the event for you to contact us directly and to share resources with you. Today's webinar will be presented by Thomas Poskill, a staff cloud engineer. With that being said, I'll hand it off to Thomas.
So I'm going to start off with a few slides today. And we're really here to talk about Oracle Process Automation, a feature within Oracle Integration Cloud, also available as a standalone service. And then within Oracle Process Automation, there's a feature called decision models. And we're really going to dive into those decision models today. So just an agenda. We're going to go over business process automation, what it means even outside of Oracle, and then a little bit about what it means inside Oracle, what our offering is for that, Oracle Process Automation. And then a quick slide on decision models, and then we'll spend most of our time actually in Oracle Process Automation itself in the cloud, reviewing a process that's already pre-built for us that handles restaurant reservation that does include a decision model. So we'll go through that pretty quickly, and then we'll spend the vast amount of our time expanding and building a Formula One tire choice decision model. So Formula One season is starting soon. I'm a big fan. It's a big deal over here at Oracle, sponsoring the Red Bull team and things like that. And then finally, after we go through that, we'll open up Q&A, and Sean's going to introduce Code Innovate from our team. So with that, I'm going to dive in. So business process automation is essentially things that we do every day that could be easily automated, right? So anytime you work in an Excel sheet, you send that to your boss manually enters it into a database or anything like that. And if they don't accept it, they send it back, right? And all of that happens over email. It's easy to get lost. What if we could automate all of that, right? That's where business process automation comes in. Right, so, and with business process automation, we can connect to hopefully many sources of our data. So we can connect silos, things like that. All right, as I said, I'm not going to spend too much time on slides, but I will talk about what Oracle Process Automation is. So Oracle Process Automation is a business process automation tool. I use it for a lot of things. You can even use it in your personal life for handling things like emails from your landlord or anything like that. Right, so essentially what it does is it takes a data input, whether that's someone sending an email, someone submitting a web page, anything like that, takes the data from that and then puts it into an approval flow. Right, and you can see over on the right, we have swim lanes. So you have your process user here, any type of user. It could be employee, manager, CEO, right? If you were trying to submit an expense report, right? And we designed the flows to where we can submit requests with the data from the form, just submit that directly to the manager, or we have the functionality to manipulate that data in between. Go check a REST endpoint, compare the data to what the employee said the data is, and check that before any employee validates. And that's where decision models come in. Right? So decision models are my favorite part of Oracle Process Automation. Again, you can use these all over the place. Tax season is coming up, so you might think about that in the future. But the idea is that you create basically models with input data. And you say, I have this much input data, maybe 5 fields of input data, and I want to make a decision based on these attributes, right? So maybe I'm moving this week. I want to know how much movers cost. I want to know how much my new rent is. And I want to know how much the hotels are going to be along the way, right? And I can factor all of that in and produce a decision that comes up with my best route or something like that, right? All right, so here I am. I am within Oracle integration, right? So if you have an OIC instance, and this is generation 3, mind you, you can just come into your Oracle integration instance. Right? From here, you'll see your projects, design, Visual Builder. A quick note on Visual Builder, you can also use this to build your forms in the Process Cloud. So we can talk about that a bit more. But finally, we'll just click Process. Okay, and then I'm going to be taken into all applications. So as I said, you can see here I have integration or processes as well as decision models. And we're going to walk through this reservation demo, right? So the use case here is that a customer comes in and submits a use case or submits a reservation for a restaurant on a certain date, right? So the first thing we need to do is create the roles that follow the process, right? So the customer is going to submit the reservation request. The chef is going to get the reservation request with the date, and that's going to affect our season. We can get into that in a second. And the manager is just going to basically say, do we have tables or not, right? And we can look at all of the different parts of process automation by just hitting add in the top right. Okay, so chef, customer, and manager, if we scroll down, are all going to be roles, right? So I can create a new role. And I can call this something like general manager or regional manager. And then I have a scope here. So I can give him the scope of just this application, or I can give him global scope, right? Since he's the regional manager, maybe I'll give him global scope and he can see everything that's going on. This allows him to track the data about the reservations, anything he needs for his reports, right? For now, I'm just going to hit cancel on this and then keep going through the elements here. So we have a decision model here called menu generation. We'll go through that in just a minute. That's basically going to take all of the data that the customer inputs into this reserve form, which is a UI. So if I click on the reserve form, you'll see that I've created this, just a simple form. On the right, I have all of my input texts, any HTML elements I need, as well as some, styling, as well as file manager and things like that. Right. So what we're asking the customer when they come into this page is their name, phone number, classic reservation stuff. How many adults they're bringing, how many children they're bringing. That's going to come up a little bit later. The reservation date. We're going to take that into season, right? Because this is a farm to table restaurant, you could say. So it's a very seasonal menu. And then we're going to ask them if they would like a vegetarian meal or a wine pairing. Right? And then leave special requests open. Right? So all of the data that we're going to use for our process is going to come in on this form. And again, if you wanted to, you could make this a VBCS form and fully customize it. But for now, we'll just use this. All right. So I've explained all of the different pieces we have here, except for the structured process. And the structured process is where everything sort of comes together, right? So again, if I go to add, you'll see that I have a structured process here. Down below, the reserve form is what we call a web form. So anything you need will be available here. But let's see how it all works together in this pre-built process for us. Okay, so over on the left, I have an event. The event comes from here under events. It's just a start event with the form, right? Essentially saying that someone filled out the form to create a reservation, right? The first thing I'm going to do with the information from the form, I can check out the data association. right? So I'm going to take all of the arguments from the form and I can look at those. Right here, I have those available under reserved form arguments. I've just created an object and stored everything from the form, right? And then I'm just going to store that in an object as well. And then I want to send it to a mapper. So again, I said it was a farm to table restaurant. So they want to take it date to season, meaning if you insert November 31st, they probably want fall, right? That's going to be the fall menu. If you insert December 28th, you're going to get the winter menu. But if we look back at the form, they're just inserting a date, right? We don't have a season. So when we're doing this, we use what we call the data mapper. So that's just taking data from the form and realigning it. And I can check that by clicking those two arrows, and that might have been a little bit too fast. Up here, if I click the data mapper and then I click over here to the mapping data association, I can see I'm mapping spring to a variable that I've called season due. Essentially, any output that I get based on the date, I'm going to map. And then from there, I'm going to head into the decision model. And that's really what we're here to talk about today. So if I click on this decision model, you'll see that I get the option to choose one. So menu generation. And this is something that exists outside of the process application. So if I go back and go to my decisions, it may have disappeared on me. Okay, not an issue. We'll just go back to the process. Okay, here we are. So what I've done here is I've laid out 4 input parameters, right? So input data, these are pretty simple. So do you have kids? If you have kids, your beverages might be apple juice for them, right? And with wine pairing, we want to compare that to the dish, right? So we're going to take the season that we've extrapolated from the date that the reservation is set at, and we have a list of values here for spring, summer, fall, winter, right? And then we have is vegetarian. You remember that might have been a checkbox on the form, and that's either going to be true or false. So we're going to take these 2 data endpoints from the form that was submitted, and then we're going to look at this dishes decision model, right? So this is the table, and all I have to do here is go in here and simply say, if this is spring, then I'd like to update that, right? And we're going to create a brand new one here in just a second. But essentially, what it's doing is taking the season, asking if they're a vegetarian, and then we're manually defining the output here. So this might be a chef, and you may be able to use some sort of AI function to do this as well. But that's not built into OPA at this point. Right, so if it's winter and I'm a vegetarian, you're going to serve me chickpea stuffed peppers. However, if I'm not a vegetarian, you'll serve me the Argentine steak. So let's stick with the Argentine steak and think about what the wine pairing might be for that. So wine out of Argentina, probably a Malbec, right? And so we're taking the data that we get from dishes. So if we have Argentine steak and we stick that into our beverages model, and we've decided that we do want a wine pairing, then we can look in here, right? So I have my Argentine steak. I do want the wine pairing. So I've selected that on my form, and it's going to select a nice Malbec from Argentina for me, right? So that's a very simple process. We didn't build it together though. So for the next step, what we're going to do is go ahead and build that Formula One process. So I've started a decision model here, and I've created some input variables. Right, so far I have weather. And for weather, what I've done here is I've made it a text, and then I've allowed it to be a list of values, right? Meaning that it can be any set of these three values that I've defined. So I've defined dry, light rain, and heavy rain. So those are the three options that people have to choose from when they go to insert this process. And then I have laps remaining. So any lap in a Formula One race is between 1 and 100 laps, but hopefully there's 15 laps that you don't need new tires. So I've set my allowed values to a number. And then I've set it to between 1 lap and 85 laps. If there's 0 laps left, you're not going to stop the race, or you're not going to stop to change your tires. And if there's more than 85, something's gone terribly wrong. Okay, and then I have track type. So track type simply means, are we racing on a street like Monaco or Las Vegas? Or are we racing on a closed racing circuit like Spa or Circuit of the Americas? And then finally, I have track temperature here, which is also going to be a number, and allowed values are going to be between 0 and 40 Celsius. So on the right, you can see that if I wanted to add more input data, I could. Maybe if I wanted to call this driver input, and then I can click on it. I'll keep it as text, make it a list of values, and it can be either tires are good, tires are wearing, or tires are gone. Right, and then those would be 3 options that would show up for that data input. So it's as easy as that to add new data inputs. And you can also connect these to databases. All right, so that's how you add input data. So now let's think about what the end goal for this decision is going to be. So with all of this information, what we're trying to get out of it is a decision table that's going to tell us which tire to switch onto in the next pit stop. Right? So I'll just call this tire choice on pit. Okay, so I have a decision model, and we want to figure out how all these data points are going to fit into that decision model, right? So weather is sort of a straight line. I'm just going to take weather, click the line icon over here, and drag that into my decision model. And so is laps remaining. But track type and track temperature sort of work together, right? We want to do some more analysis before we send this off to the actual tire choice. So there's no problem in dropping another decision model that lies in between. And we'll just call this degradation. So this essentially means how much is the tire going to degrade on each lap based on the data that is available. Okay. So then we'll drag track type to degradation, track temperature to degradation, and then we'll take degradation and take the result of that and put it in tire choice. So we'll start off with the simplest example here. We've got everything connected, so all of our data endpoints are going into a decision model that hopefully we can get a result out of at the end, right? So if I double click on the decision model, I can click here, and if I start to type one of my variables that I've created below, I can choose one of these. And then I'm going to create a column to the right just using this button up here on the top. So I've got track type and track temperature. And then I can come in and say, so if I'm on a street and the temperature is, and I can come over and hit the 1, 2, 3. So the mode is going to be a number. And if I do between, or let's do greater than, right? So if the temperature is greater than 30 Celsius, then I want a degradation level. So I'll click my output. Right. Change that to degradation level, and then I'm going to put either high, medium, or low here. And you can choose whatever value. But assuming that we're on a street circuit, which is rougher than an actual racetrack, and the temperature is very high, we're going to assume that the degradation is high. Right? And then we can keep going through this. So let's say we're on street. And circuit, but temperature is lower than 10. So I can just write in lower than 10. Right, so it's doing the same thing as 30. Anytime, no matter what circuit we're on, if the track temperature is lower than 10, degradation is going to be low. Right, and so you can continue this process for everything. What I've done is gotten us halfway there. So what our decision model ends up looking like is something like this, right? So I'm taking track temperature. What I've done here is I've just done a number between 0 and 10 Celsius, whether you're on street or track, right? That's the same as below 10, essentially, like what we did before. The output's going to be low, right? And then between 11 and 20, following the same method, and we're on a track, output's going to be low. But if we switch to a street, the output might be medium, right? And we can keep adding different complications and combinations of different things to this to make it as granular as we need to. So you will notice that I have a few warnings here. So because I'm using these ranges between 0 and 10, and here you'll see that I have number, any advanced. The warnings are saying that there's no value between 10 and 11, 28 and 29. We're assuming that we're only taking integers, right? Okay. So track type and track temperature are going to come into the degradation level. And we're going to get an output of low, medium, or high, right? That output is going to be fed to tire choice, which is our next decision model that we're going to fill out, as well as the two other remaining data points that we had, right? So weather and laps remaining. So now if I click on tire choice, you can see here that I've started doing some of it so that we don't have to fill it all out together. But again, I've taken different variables that I have available. So degradation level is the response from the table, right? So degradation level comes from here. And then weather and laps remaining were the two remaining data inputs that I had. So whether you're on a low medium, or high degradation level, and there's light rain, you're switching to an intermediate tire, right? So this encompasses all of the values that we put in. No matter what's happening, if it's raining lightly, you're going to put on the intermediate tire. And if it's raining heavy, you're going to put on a full wet tire. Right? Close that. It's just saying that not everything is mapped. So for low, dry, this is going to be the soft tire. And they're working on fixing this, that every time you add something, it's thrown an error. Okay, so this is the medium tire. This is the soft tire. Okay, and essentially we'll keep filling these things in. And then again, I have the final model here, so we can take a look. So once I've filled in everything, I have my laps remaining as betweens, under, right? So depending on these variables, I'm using my human input to come up with these tire selections, right? But anytime we need to repeat this process, we can just pump it into here. We don't need to recalculate the data. So again, I'm using betweens here, allowed value between. And then I'm also using things like greater than or less than. So let's take one of these examples. So if we have degradation level of medium, weather is dry, laps remaining are over 40, we're going on the hard tire. So let's say we want to test out the final application. I can hit this play button on the right, and it's going to allow me to come in and choose my options. So since I created a list of values for weather, I'm going to go ahead and choose dry. Because again, if you remember, if I choose light rain or heavy rain, it's just going to default to one of those wet tires. Track temperature can be 32 Celsius. It's a hot day. And let's check track type. And there's going to be 43 laps remaining. And then I can just hit start test. And it's going to tell me I need to go onto the hard tire. And it's also going to give me the answer for degradation level. So I'm getting answers for both of the decision models I created. So output from the first two data inputs, which were track temperature and track type. So degradation level was high. And then when we added a high degradation level on top of a lot of laps remaining and dry weather, we decided that we would come up with a hard tire. All right. And so this is very simple. You could add a lot more to this. But if, for example, you wanted to integrate this into a service, you could have something that the race engineer picks up the data from the driver. So the driver radios in, race engineer starts the process fires off this decision model, and then we get the tire choice, and we can notify the pit crew from there, right? And in order to do all of that, what we need to do is set up a decision service. So right now we have a nice decision here, but it just lives in this little box with the service. So if I just click up here on decision services, if I were to create a new one, call it get tire type. All right, and then if I expand get tire type, so the output decision that I ultimately want is tire choice. Again, if I wanted to also pull back degradation level, if that was useful to my team and the API, then I could pull that back as well, the response. But what we need to set for input data is probably more important, right? So we need to make sure that we're putting in the weather, the track temperature, the track type, and laps remaining. Right? All of our data inputs need to be populated. And then from there, I can just hit payload and test this from any Postman or VBCS integration, anything like that. So that is basically what I had to show today. I'll turn it over to Sean right now.
First and foremost, I just want to thank all of you guys for taking some time out of your day to attend our presentation and demo. So just to quickly introduce myself, my name is Sean Cartwright. I'm a senior cloud engineer and program manager here at the Oracle Code Innovate program. So Tom and I have been a part of this program now for going on about 4 years plus. We work for this team known as Code Innovate. So to explain our program, I liken it to an activity that our director would do most every year with his kids when they were younger. So he would take his kids on a trip to Legoland. This one just happens to be near Chicago. So out of all the attractions and activities at Legoland, their favorite thing to do was to participate in something called the Lego Master Builder class. So during this class, all of the kids were given their own clear plastic bag of disassembled Lego pieces without any instructions, much like you would normally find in Lego sets that you buy in the stores for your own kids. So the adults in the front of the room, pictured here in the top right-hand corner in green shirts, they were known as Lego Master Builders. So over the course of the event, they work with these kids on the concept of brick interlocking and how to create smooth faces on objects using Lego pieces. So on this particular day, they built these little penguins with earmuffs. But the goal of the class was first and foremost for these kids to have fun. However, in a very short amount of time, they learned to build with Legos in a creative environment using techniques that they were taught by true experts. So we tell this story because in its simplest form, that's what we do here at the Code Innovate program. Code Innovate is a 5 half-day online event designed to educate builders and developers like yourselves on Oracle Cloud while producing a first pass prototype, a minimally viable product on your customer selected business challenges. So over the course of the week, participants from your teams are going to be paired up with an Oracle engineer to guide them through best practices, and essentially we'll be developing together. So during this time, you're going to brainstorm on a given business challenge that you guys identify. You're going to identify different tasks to complete, and then you're going to partner with us to develop an MVP. So whether you guys are novices or pros in Oracle Cloud, Code Innovate is all about building real solutions to kind of tackle some of your organization's most pressing use cases. So the way it typically works is that you guys bring us your use cases because we want to work on things that you guys want to work on, assuming that they're a good fit for our program. Not every use case is, but we'll do our due diligence up to front to figure out whether or not your particular use case would be a good fit. And through the process of working through the use case and building it out over the course of the week, you guys are going to be rapidly upskilled at the same time, because this is a very, I would say it's a 20-hour intensive program, and that you're going to be getting, um, first class subject matter experts from Oracle working with you guys hand in hand, showing you what to do and kind of explaining you through all these different processes and explaining the why behind certain things to help you guys kind of meet your different business challenges. So you're going to be getting coached up simultaneously while solving your problem. So the goal of this, though, is to build a first pass prototype. And a point that I would like to make here is that our program does not only support Oracle process automation use cases. We support builds with many different, Oracle infrastructure and platform services, including cloud native services like Oracle Kubernetes Engine. We support things like Oracle Analytics Cloud, OCI Data Science, and AI services. AI services being language, text, document understanding, all the different AI services that we have. Oracle Digital Assistant, which is now being considered under the AI services platform. Digital Assistant is our chatbot platform. Oracle Integration Cloud, including Visual Builder Studio, which is the CI/CD pipeline tool for managing different pipelines and environments, and Visual Builder Cloud Service. So I'm sure that people on the call might be familiar with the entirety of like the Oracle Integration Cloud, which encompasses VBCS as well as OPA, which used to be called Process Cloud Service. So many different services, and most times our use case builds at the event, we're involving multiple different services that comprise the entire solution, because not every use case demands just one product. It might be a combination of products. So we'll do the due diligence up front to figure out, what that solution might entail to actually solve the problem. I make this point because oftentimes our webinars are just based on a single product or a topic or a nuance in a product. So, but our team is capable of resourcing specialists within our team itself, people like Tom, and of our larger organization to kind of meet your needs. So depending on how many people that you guys would like to bring. So everything that our team works on, though, is a custom built prototype, tailor fit to your specific use case. Nothing is canned, and just want to make that clear. So the requirements that we ask are that you bring 3 or more builders, developers. I like to call them builders. We use the term loosely because they can also be business users, just depending on the technical complexity of the use case and the role that they're going to play, especially if they're end users. They might just be involved in the process to kind of like consult on what they would like in the given solution. So, but we encourage anyone who's wanting to build in the cloud is welcome. We ask for a 20-hour time commitment for the week of the event itself. That translates to 5 half days of 4 hours per day continuously. Usually we like to do this in one week continuously. We ask that you bring your own use cases because we want to work on things that you guys want to work on that you've identified. We ask for 3 weeks of lead time. That just ensures that we get the correct resourcing for the Oracle side, as well as for yourselves, for you to be able to block your calendars and be able to participate. But it does mean that we don't start engaging until that week itself. Whenever we identify it, we'll do planning meetings usually in the 3 weeks leading up to the event. So formal cadence meetings typically once a week for 30 minutes leading up to it, just to properly discover the use case, agree on the logistics, just make sure assuming that we're going to be working in your tenancy, then we're going to have to possibly provision services, add users, things of that nature that we call tenancy configuration. So all of that stuff will be done on the lead up to the event week to make sure that everything is kind of ready to go, so that when Monday happens, we can start building together. Last but not least, there's no fee to do the event beyond the time commitment for both of our teams and the cost of the cloud services that you consume to build out the use cases themselves. And I just want to make a note that our program only supports customers that are here based in North America, like US and Canadian customers. We work with offshore teams, but it has to be linked back to a US and like a North America account. But yeah, I'd be happy to take any questions. If you guys are interested in engaging the program or just want to explore whether or not the use case that you have in mind could be a fit, please reach out to your Oracle Cloud Platform representative or the Oracle account team. If you don't know who that person may be, you can send us an email to the one provided on the screen here, codeinnovate_us_grp@oracle.com. Or send a request through to the marketing team that's on the call today, and they can establish a lead in the system and try to get us linked up together. So just thank you so much for your time. Nice meeting you all.